Hi everyone, welcome to my video on changing the rear hub and wheel bearing on an R60 MINI Countryman 2012 model. So this is the part I'm replacing here. It has the wheel bearing and hub all as one joined unit. The reason I'm changing it is because I've had problems with the traction control and ABS on that particular corner, the left back. So that's why I'm changing it. Other problems you might have that you need to change it is if you're getting a droning noise coming from the wheel bearing, because it's basically worn and it'll drone as the wheel turns and it'll change tone as the wheel goes faster or as you increase speed. Another known telltale sign is if you grab the wheel and it rocks back and forward, that's indication that the wheel bearing's on its way out and needs replaced. So I'm just going to jump straight into the procedure how to do this on this model. It varies depending on different cars, things like that. So this part, it's a good part. I got quality part, cost me just under £80. You can buy them half that price from eBay and other such places, but I wouldn't recommend it. You basically pay for what you get. A garage quoted me £260 to do this job, so I'm going to do it myself, get a good bit of peace of mind, know I'm saving money and knowing I'm doing it to a standard I like with a good quality part I like. So I'm braving the elements, I'm doing it outside, I've got no car ramp, I'm just a DIY enthusiast that struggles on to keep my cars going. So take you straight outside and we'll go through the procedure on how to replace this. So the car's been jacked up, it's on axle stands for safety and the wheel's off. First thing I'm going to do, or the first thing I have done off camera, I've been around all the bolts that have to come off and I've put penetrating fluid on them. Just gives them a chance to work while I'm taking some of the other bits and pieces off. So the hub in here, all this needs to come off, so the brake assembly, the disc, to get in, and then the hub from behind. It's basically essentially a DIY job. Bolts. Rust causes problems, especially in Scotland where I'm based. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is get this torque bolt off, and that is a T6. These can be quite seized on because of the location in the car. You might need an air gun for the shock to loosen it. But what you need to do is make sure it's a correct fit, because if this starts rounding it can cause problems. I'm going to try this first to see how well it comes, and if it comes first time, excellent. If not, I'll need to rethink. First time, it's going to be a good day. The reason I've done that first is so that the disc can be held in place. If you take all the disc assembly off and it starts turning, you can then start turning this. At least if I do that first, I can have the handbrake on to hold this in place. Right, next thing I'm going to be looking at taking the caliper out, taking the caliper bolts off and getting that assembly off. Before I do that, it's very important that I take the handbrake off, otherwise it's going to be squashed against this and it's going to make it tight coming off. And these brakes are in good condition, they're going back on the car. So handbrake off and then back to the bolts on here. Right, the caliper bolts. Got one here and one here. These are 13mm bolts. You will probably need a spanner, 15mm spanner to put in here to stop the slider pin assembly turning at the same time. These can be quite tight to start with, but once they break free they'll come off fairly easy. They weren't tight at all, which leads me to think they've either had copper grease put on them or they've been off fairly recently. Yep, there you go, see, copper grease on the inside. Same with that, and that's a classic example of why copper grease can help. Although when I put these back on, because of what these are, they should have thread lock on them, so they should really be locked in a bit better than that. Right, the caliper can now come off. Sometimes it might come off easily, other times it might need a pry bar in here just to help ease it off a bit. So pry bar, be careful not to damage any of the shims for the slider plates or the disc. Different if you're replacing the brakes, but like I said before, I'm not, so once it starts to come it will wiggle free. And it's ideal to catch it before it does that. You don't want to put any strain on the flexi hose or the handbrake cable here, so what I use is a flexi lead just to hold it up, and it keeps it out of the way as well. Brake pads, again these should wiggle out. And you can see there's a lot of meat left on them. I won't be replacing these just yet. I will be, however, further down the line. That's a bit more stuck, this one. What I will point out with the Mini, it has brake wear pad sensors. It's not applicable on this side because this is the rear left. It has one on the rear it has one on the rear right and one on the front left. So when you're taking the pads out here on either one of those other sides, you need to be very careful. I do have a previous video there on replacing the wear pad sensor, but the sensor sits in this slot here and it can rust in very easily, and they do break very easily, so you need to take that into account when you're ordering parts for that. You may need to replace the wear pad sensor. This on the inside here is stuck quite a bit, so I'm just going to get a hammer and drift, put it on here and just get a couple of taps and that'll knock that free. There you go. Right, next to come off is the brake caliper retaining bracket. This is held on with two bolts that go through the back, and they are torque bolts, or Torx bolts. You can get rusty behind here, and it's not the most accessible, but you can see with the air of a light there's one in there, and one in there. Again, you'll see penetrating fluid here. These can be quite tight. So, same as before, two bolts loosen and then this will come free. Previous experience, unless these have been off recently, I would recommend using a good bit of leverage or a breaker bar. Once the carrier's out the way, the disc will come loose. Sometimes you might find that it's a bit rusted in here, just give it a clean with a wire wheel, and if it needs a bit of persuasion, just a slight tap with a rubber mallet just to break the seal of rust. But this one came off fine for me. And then that leaves the hub, which I showed you at the start of the video. This has 4 bolts at the back. What you also need to be careful with when taking this off, you've got the ABS sensor that tucks in the back of here. which you've seen if you've seen the replacing the ABS sensor in my last video on this car. So I'll show you these bolts. So 4 retaining bolts for the hub around here. Get a bit of light. You can see the 4 there. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4. These are all 18mm sockets, so as much as you can clean this up to get a good fit and then undo them one at a time, and then the hub will lift off. I'm going to undo them off camera and then I'll come back to you once the hub's ready to lift off, because as you can see there's not much room or access here. A little tip here, these are very tight coming off. This is the other end of the bolt, so if you can clean this up with a wire wheel all around here, it makes it a lot easier when it's coming off. So a bit of time later, all 4 bolts are off. That took a bit of time and a bit of patience, because the access and the rust on the bolts made it very, very time consuming. It's, as you can see, still solid on there. These two surfaces tend to corrode together because of the different types of metal, so I'm going to try and just give it a couple of whacks with a rubber mallet to get it off. And if it doesn't like a rubber mallet, just a normal hammer. This is getting replaced anyway, so. So a quick comparison, old versus new. This is all corroded, nasty. On the other side, the strip here is going to give a much better signal to the ABS sensor. This one here cleaned up okay, but there's still chips and gouges, so it was definitely the right decision to replace it. Right, just a little note when putting this back on, you'll notice the holes are not all evenly spaced out here. So as a guide on this lobe here sits on the bottom here. You'll know when putting on because the holes only line up in a certain orientation anyway. So that's just a little note when putting this back together. What you might also see is the bolts have been taken off for the back plate for the disc. This just ripped off. I've been hearing a rattle from the rear end for a little while now, and this explains what it was. So this, I've ordered a replacement part and that will be going on when it comes. I'm just now going to start reassembly. I'm not going to go through this process because it's the same as taking it apart. I will just put some photos and things in as I'm going through.